Sun was down. It was probably like 9:30 at night. I had the music on. Spotify was on my TV. I'm packing in and out of the bedroom. And all of a sudden, Riley starts going crazy and she's barking at the door. And I had all my blinds closed. And I hear a knock. And I just instantly knew in my gut that it was him. And so I go into my bedroom and I hide in my closet under my clothes. Okay, where do we live off? Big shout out to my dad for listening to this whole story all over again for the millionth fucking time. Do I sound super nasally?
No, it's not bad.
Okay.
I mean, you can tell a little bit.
But it's not like...
No.
Okay. Okay, so move in. What I plan for just to be like the weekend while I sort out my life. Break up with fiance number 2. I'm really proud of myself. I haven't said his name yet. Move in with our friends that were living across the street from us, but they just bought a house that was like a 3-minute drive from where X and I lived. Now X. We can officially now call him X. I remember I got in that night and I purposely didn't want to share too much because X and I had become friends with this couple as a couple. And so, yeah, I didn't want to like sit there and shit talk him. And I was also like still in shock and I think processing everything myself. One of the girls that night, or the girl that lived there, I remember her coming to me in my room and just saying like, hey, like I'm a girl's girl first. Like if you want to talk, like I'm totally here for you. And so I ended up sharing everything pretty much with them, at least like the pandemic part of the relationship with them. And they really had my back and like we got super close. So I ended up living with them for like 3-4 weeks while I apartment hunted and looked for my own place. This was obviously very sudden. So like had a lot of like things to do and get ready for that move. And so I lived with them for a month, and in that 4 weeks I lived with them, X would show up very frequently, unannounced, not welcomed. He would drop off matcha lattes because he knows my favorite drink is a matcha oat milk latte, iced, lightly sweetened. And he would drop off matcha lattes at my front door, and I'd be working, taking calls from my computer. And like there was a glass door to the front, like the front door had like a glass little cutout in it. So you could kind of, if you had the blind open, you could see someone right there. So I'd be on a work call and like look over and he'd just be fucking standing there with flowers and matcha lattes. And I'd wake up, I'd come home from workouts and there'd be matcha lattes and flowers and gifts. And he brought my bike, like just like random fucking shit. And I would tell him, leave me alone. I don't want you here. I'm trying to process this. We are not getting back together. And like, it was just very much like me setting boundaries and him not respecting them. So that started to just be like suffocating. Found a place. Mind you, I'm going to add that like at this point in my career, so I was working for a company that I was super fucking stoked to be working for. And at this point, like I was like falling apart in like every part of my life. And like I had always been like a, strong performer. And this part of like my life, ever since I moved to Austin and the pandemic hit and then stuff with him and I was going down, like my performance, I was crumbling. Like I was absolutely crumbling. I had never in my life cried in a meeting before, a work meeting. And I remember sitting in that studio that like I was renting from my friends on a call with my boss's boss at the time, and her asking me just like, hey, how you doing? And I just fucking broke down crying because I was just like losing my mind and like falling apart. And so work was fucking shit, and my ex had a whole fucking affair, and it was a whole thing, and it was a global pandemic, and I was in the city and I didn't have any like family there, and I had these new friends that I had made. Thank God I had them at the time, but like they were also friends with him still, so that was kind of weird. And like it was a whole fucking weird disaster. I find a place, move in. So at this point I had not, okay, let me back up. We were texting still. I think he went out we had this family trip planned to go to San Diego for a week, and he took a whole week off. And we were planning to go. It was going to be him and I and his sister and his parents, and they'd rented this like beautiful house on the beach in San Diego. It was going to be this whole like summer vacation thing. Yeah. And I obviously didn't go because we just broke up. Right. So he went. So while he was gone, because we had our dog, and I couldn't have, well, I could have had her, but like the place I was in was a little bit too, it was just wouldn't work to have her. So he was watching Riley while he was there, and I was kind of apartment hunting. And then like when he took off to go to San Diego, I told him to let me know when he left, and then I was going to go back and stay in the house for the week because the whole house was empty, and watch Riley and have the space to myself. And I'm still apartment hunting, find a place. And I like intentionally like didn't want him to know where I lived because of his behavior of like showing up to like my friend's place. I was like, no, I just want to like have a clean start and like try to like move on. So I did what I could to like I reset passwords to our Amazon accounts, like any like possible thing that he would have access to. I like changed passwords so that he shouldn't know my address and wouldn't know it. And I remember him asking me multiple times, like, where's your new place? What neighborhood is it in? You don't need to know. It's not your business. You don't need to know. So I found a place, moved in. It was the other side of town. So it was like a good 20 minutes from him, completely different neighborhood. Okay. So at this point I hadn't blocked him yet on my cell phone because I think in my mind at that time, I wanted to like get into my new home, get my dog. Cause I told him already from the beginning, I was like, I'm taking Riley. Like at this point, Riley, I had her on my vet insurance or on my pet insurance. I'd paid for all of her puppy training. I'd done all of her training with her. Like she was mine. And like he also gifted her to me as a Christmas present. So I'm like, no, I'm fucking taking the dog. So until I got Riley and got into my place and then had like a kind of a full break, I kept him on my cell phone just to like kind of, and it was almost in a way like me kind of having to manipulate the situation back, right? To like protect myself. So as soon as I got moved into my place, I blocked him on my cell phone, and then the emails start. So now we're in August 2020 and the emails start, and it's like every single day email, from a work email, from a personal email, from another personal email, iCloud, Gmail, Ymail, Yahoo, you fucking name it, LinkedIn messages, Instagram message. Then I blocked him on Instagram. I actually went off Instagram completely for a good month or so. I kind of like wanted to ghost myself a little bit because I was just nervous about like him seeing something somehow, even though he was blocked. I went through and blocked him and all of his friends, and then I just still didn't feel like that was safe because there was weird things getting back to him, and I would get emails from him where even after I had blocked him on all social media and his cell phone and all of his friends that I could think of and his family, he would call out, like he'd get emails from him where he'd be like, oh, heard you were at such and such brewery yesterday. And I'm like, how the fuck did you know that? Like just creepy shit. So I just went off of social media for a good like month or so, trying to like at this point I'm so terrified of losing my job too, because I had not been performing, and so I needed to like try to focus and like heal and like just like center myself so I could like perform with work, and that's all that mattered, and like just take care of myself and Riley. I start getting like, God, this man got so fucking creative and was just so like desperate. I would get WhatsApp messages from him. WhatsApp is like an international app you use to like contact people, which like I hadn't even been on WhatsApp in like years. LinkedIn accounts. I would get ads on, or I'd get random ads on like, I think I went off of Instagram, but not Facebook because I wasn't active on Facebook. And I remember getting like fake Facebook accounts that he had created. Clearly was him because it was tied to his name. Just all these weird creative ways of like reaching. I think I even remember getting a message somehow from like what the fuck was it? It wasn't like a DoorDash, but there was like some other app that I didn't even know you could contact someone through. And then like our dog sitter. So I had found a dog sitter or a dog daycare for Riley. And I notified him privately, hey, like so-and-so and I are not together anymore. Here's my new address. Like, please pick her up for daycare at this new address. And one of the times that Riley got picked up for daycare or dropped off, I remember the owner, who I'd made friends with, was like, hey, I'm sorry to like have to ask this, but like, are you and like your ex are like not on good terms? Because he's been asking me questions about you, and I just want to make sure that I'm not like disclosing anything. Like, I'm very much respectful of like private client boundaries and all these. He was just like using any possible person to try to contact me. So this was annoying and obnoxious and infuriating at this point. I remember he even actually had one of his colleagues who I had become kind of good friends with, and I really respected and adored, one of his male colleagues, reached out to me. And he was actually one of the only people that I didn't block on like my cell phone, because he had always been like, I don't know, I just always felt like he was my friend too. He reached out to me and was like, hey, Kris, like, can we talk? And for some fucking reason, I don't know why I thought that was a good idea, but I agreed to talk to him. So I talked to him, and I had this like 2.5 hour long conversation with this guy. And the whole time he was like, wait, like, I want to know your side of the story, like what's happening. And I disclosed some things to him. I didn't tell him names about the affair that he was having, because I didn't want to like, because this guy worked with him. So I didn't want to like, you know. And then towards the end of our like 2.5 hour long call, I remember it became clear that like he started to kind of move into this like, his colleague took this approach of like, I could tell that it became clear to me that so-and-so, my ex, had put him up to this conversation. And then I was just fucking livid. I was like, you know what? Fuck you. Like, I thought that we were talking because like you genuinely were like trying to like understand the situation. And now I'm realizing that this person, my ex, put you up to this, and you're trying to get information from me, and I'm not going to do that. So goodbye. Hung up on him. And then I kind of went on this, like, I need to block everyone. I just went off of everything again and like reset myself. And then I remember, was it October? August, September. I think it was the end of September or early October. No, sometime in September. I went to a dentist appointment for a filling or cleaning or something. And I'm like in the parking lot. I'm leaving the dentist office to get into my car. And I get a call from my neighbor. So mind you, I lived in a little like corner, like back alleyway in this cute little neighborhood. And there were 3 bungalows all on one lot. And I had one bungalow. And then the person behind me was a single guy. And then there was a single girl that lived behind me. And we all became friends. And I didn't give them details, but I shared enough with them, because at this point I just like wanted them to know like, hey, I have kind of a crazy ex. And like, if you see anyone that looks like this and this and this, like, just don't share that I live here. Don't share anything. Like, let me know. So I get a call from my neighbor. I just got out of the dentist office, and she was like, hey, like, the cops are here. They're looking for you. And I'm like, what in the fuck? And I had just moved into my new place, had just maxed out one of my credit cards to like furnish my apartment, because I was like resetting my life. I was just not in a good financial place, but I was like, you know what? I'm okay. It's going to be fine. And I get a fucking call like a month into living in my new place. Like, the cops are looking for you. And I'm like, this has to have something to do with so-and-so. And she's like, it's okay, babe. Don't worry. Blah, 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 blah. It's fine. Like, I think they don't seem like, I think it's more of like you're getting served papers. And I'm like, oh, fuck. So I drive home. And at this point, what are they called? Not corporal. What are they called? They're not police officers, but the people that serve you papers. There was some name for them in Austin or Texas. I don't know what it started with a C, I thought. Anyway, I can't think of what it is. But at that point, that cop had literally made her way, I think it was her way to all of my neighbors. So not only the 2 that I become close with, but my other random neighbors behind me that I'd never even had a fucking conversation with, and were looking for me. And now I'm feeling embarrassed and uncomfortable, because I'm like, they don't know me. And like, now, like, they're probably, who knows what they could be thinking, what this is about. And like, I'm not some criminal or someone to be scared of, or like a crazy person. And so that I'm just feeling like, fuck, like, no. So that was the whole fucking thing. And she shows up and she serves me papers and tells me that I'm being sued for custody of Riley, and for approximately $850. Sued for custody of Riley, our dog, my dog, and $850. And on the document, so I opened this envelope, and on the document, there's all these like specifics on like what that money tallied up, or how that money tallied up. And so when I remember how I told you I went to San Francisco, loaded up all my shit, moved all my shit out, just my things. I left like the thing, like I couldn't fit furniture into a minivan. So it was mainly my personal belongings and like some artwork and stuff like that. So when he decided to then make the move permanent and like move his things out, he flew back to San Francisco, loaded up the rest of his stuff, put it into a U-Haul and shipped it out to Austin, like a U-Haul mover box, the same one that I used for my stuff, right? He was claiming or accusing me of owing him money for that U-Haul mover pod to move his shit from San Francisco to Austin.
Well, because it's your fault that you had to do that.
And so when he gets his stuff out there, I had planned to buy like all new furniture. I was like, whatever, fuck it. I'm just making this work. There was a couple things because, mind you, the house in Austin we had was a fully furnished, like rentable place. So there was a bunch of doubles, like extra TVs, extra chairs that he didn't have room for them. So when I had all my movers kind of moving my stuff to my new place, because I moved to Austin, moved back in with him, then moved into my friend's place, then moved into my new place. It was a whole fucking crazy thing. I remember him reaching out to me and saying like, hey, like, you know, there's like chairs and couches and things that I don't have room for. If you have a need for them, like take them. Okay, great. So I took like a chair and I think one of the flat screens, and I think that was it. It was like 2 things and like a mattress or something like that, or an extra pair of sheets. So now he's telling me that I owe him for half of because it costs like, I think $1,800 or something for the U-Haul box. I owed him for half of that and for the cost of the furniture, because it was just this whole fucking thing, and custody of Riley. And I'm like looking at this fucking paper and I'm like, are you fucking kidding me right now? Are you kidding me? So yeah. And then September, okay, so mind you, it's been like, broke up with him in July, August, September, October. We're going like 3.5 months now of breakups. And at this point I had like stockpiled like tens of emails, like we're almost, hundreds of emails at this point that he was sending me I was getting near daily. At least every week I was getting multiple emails, if not daily, every other day, multiple emails from different accounts, from his work account, from his iCloud, from his Gmail, all these things. And I think Dad Jim or one of you guys were like, you know what, you should save those emails. Do not delete them, just in case you maybe need them for evidence one day. So I didn't delete them. And I remember one afternoon on September, I was sitting on my kitchen counter in the middle of a workday, like lunchtime, and I had my personal email up, and I like get a ping that I had a new email, and I click over, and this email from him saying that he had COVID and all these things. Or no, actually, sorry, this was the week before. I remember leading up to this, he had emailed me saying that he had COVID and he was super sick, and how like he didn't have anyone to get him food, and like he asked me to send him money for food. He sent me an email saying that he was broke and that he needed me to send him money for food. Like, this sounds ridiculous. I can't even believe that. Like, hearing this out loud, I'm like, people would not believe this, but trying to get me to respond. He was playing this like poor as me thing. But that doesn't even matter. It was like he was saying that he had no money to buy himself dinner. Like, what? Are you kidding me right now? But I'm sitting there in the middle of a work day, and I hadn't responded to any of these emails for weeks and weeks and weeks at this point. And he says, if you don't unblock me from your phone, I'm going to come to your house tonight. And that was like my fuck you moment. Like, you went too far for a long time, and now you really went too far. So now I'm feeling really uncomfortable and really unsafe. And I think at this point, had he come by yet? I'm trying to remember. Because remember I told you he came by a couple times when I wasn't there? I don't think he'd come by at this point to my knowledge. But I get that email, and I call one of the parents, and it became clear that like I needed to like take legal action because he was not fucking listening to me. So I file a protective order. I tried to file a restraining order, but I was told that like his restraining orders, at least in the state of Texas, I don't know all of the state laws, like the circumstances that I had been through with him didn't qualify for a restraining order, but they did for a protective order because it was underneath like it would be defined as a stalking behavior. So I I reach out to the, Austin public. Yeah, Austin. Yeah. And they send me this log. And so step 1 to get this process is to fill out this log where you have to put the date, the type of contact, and then a description of what the contact attempt was for every single contact attempt. So I'm going back to July, August, September. Now we're kind of almost into October, I believe. And I'm getting multiple emails and contacts attempts a day. So this took me like a whole week. I remember every night for like a solid week, I would sit down and I was spending like 2 hours every night filling out this log and going through my emails and checking my other emails and checking my LinkedIn's and checking my Facebook and my Instagrams and my WhatsApps and my everything, logging this whole thing. And I think it was like 189 emails that were logged. And that's not even including the contacts at showing up at the door with the matcha lattes and the flowers. There were several of those, him contacting me through his friends. So this was like pages and pages and pages and pages and pages of evidence that shows concerning behavior. Repeated unwanted contact. Thank you. And I get all my ducks in a row. I submit the paperwork. It gets accepted. It's filed. And then he gets served papers. So the next step was for him to get served that he's being taken to court, and that a protective order is being lodged against him. I remember getting a call from a detective. Yeah, a detective. They couldn't find him. So they had showed up at the address and they were calling me trying to confirm, is this the address? Is this the house? Can you just like reconfirm his description, what he looks like, his height, hair color, eyes, all these things. And I remember at this point, like feeling so like sad that like it gotten to this point. Cause like, I didn't want to take legal action. I just wanted to be left the fuck alone. But like, it got into a point where I'm like, well, you've put me in this position now. Cause I'm just trying to like move on with my life. And then cause my solo trip to Mexico was mid-October. I remember that. Or no, end of September, October, somewhere in October. But sometime between him sending that note and me filing that paperwork and then me leaving for my solo trip a couple weeks later in October, he showed up twice to my house. It must have been before he got served because he wouldn't have done that if he got served. So there was this period where kind of the courts are processing and everything's fucking delayed because of COVID. So all the paperwork and all the things are just super delayed. It took weeks for things to get pushed through to the courts and like for someone to actually contact you. He showed up the first time he showed up. I was actually packing for my trip to Mexico. So I found out that we had a long like holiday weekend and I spontaneously like purchased this ticket and planned a trip to Cancun to like travel through the Yucatan to just get the fuck out of Austin because I was just going fucking mad and needed to get away. And I remember I was packing that night. I was leaving the next morning to go to Houston to catch my flight. And I had another fucking cutout. Never move into a house, ladies, with a fucking glass cutout in a front door. That is so dangerous. And you couldn't see through it directly, but you could see shapes. And it was dark time. The sun was down. It was probably like 9:30 at night. I had the music on. Spotify was on my TV. I'm packing in and out of the bedroom. And all of a sudden, Riley starts going crazy and she's barking at the door. And I had all my blinds closed. And I hear a knock. And I just instantly knew in my gut that it was him. And so I go into my bedroom and I hide in my closet under my clothes. And it wasn't like he'd ever been violent with me where that was like the fear that I was feeling. I just knew that if I opened that door though, like I didn't know if I'd be able to like get away from him, you know? And even though he clearly knew that I was living there, I just didn't, for all he knows, I could have had a roommate, you know what I mean? So hid in my closet. And at this time, so he had shared, when we first got together, he went on a work trip or something, or maybe it was a bachelor trip with the boys, and he had shared his location with me on iPhone. So and he never turned it off. So on iMessage for you non-iPhone Apple users, if you go into your contact, if someone shares your location with you indefinitely, you can click on their like, even if you're not actively texting with that person, because I had blocked him at this point, but I could just pull up the message from months ago that I had last texted him, click on his contact, and it would show the map. And if I clicked on it, it would show where he's at. So yeah, currently where he's at, if he had his phone in his pocket. Yes. So I'm literally in the yeah. Yeah. So I'm in the closet, 9:30 at night, because my closet was the only place that, like, I was trying to find somewhere that didn't have a window, right? And I'm sitting there and I grab my phone and Riley's just fucking going crazy, and I'm just like trying to be quiet so then he maybe thinks that I'm not home and like Riley's just there. And I'm like, pull up my phone and I type in his name, and even though I'd blocked him, thank God, I could still see it. And I pull up it and I can see, because I lived in an alleyway in Bolden Creek, and I could see that he was literally standing in the alleyway. Oh my God. And it was weird because I could see his little thing move. Like, he was kind of walking up and down the alley and kind of trying to like maybe see if I was on a walk or what. He knocked. I didn't have a doorbell. I don't think I had a doorbell. I think twice. Yeah, and I would watch the phone and I could see, or his location, I could see him kind of walking up and down and kind of around, and like clearly, because like he didn't pull his car and park down there because it was kind of like a private alleyway, so his car was on the main road, so it looked like he was kind of lingering. So I was in the closet for, it was at least maybe 15 minutes, just kind of hanging out and waiting, and I called my neighbor, the guy that lived behind me. He had a dog that was intimidating, a sweetheart, but intimidating looking. And I called my neighbor and he wasn't answering. I think I called you weren't answering. And my other neighbor, my other female neighbor, she had always told me, like, if you ever fucking need anything, I got you. He eventually got home and like let his dog, I think he had just got done at the gym. He got back, let his dog out, had his dog do a lap, because his dog was solo trained. You could like tell him to do a lap. So he did a lap and the coast was clear, and I could see on the map that he was like across town again. So he clearly had left. And then I took off to Mexico the next day and had a 2-week solo trip, which I will eventually talk about later, because that was like the most amazing trip ever. I needed that. I needed to be like safe and free. Like, nothing happens while I'm there. I enjoy myself. I come back and I get back to a couple bottles of wine and a 3-page handwritten note in an envelope on my front doorstep. So he had left something there clearly while I was gone, and I came home to that.
But you had already filed the protection.
Yeah, but he hadn't been served yet, because I think the papers were still processing. Nope. And I see the note, and I don't know if I read the whole thing. I think I might have only read a little bit of it, and then I was just like, whatever. And I think I stashed it away somewhere in case I needed it for evidence. I remember thinking to myself that I almost wanted to drink the wine, because it was 2 bottles of wine from the winery that we had joined as members, and they had the most amazing rosé. It was the best fucking rosé I'd ever had in my life. And I just, the way that the bottle, because it was a was it a twist or a cork? But there was something about the bottle. I remember just feeling like, I don't know if this has been opened. Yeah. Just something. I'm like, nah, we're going to throw this away. We're not going to risk this. He gets, okay, so I think a couple weeks after I got back, he got served sometime in October, I think, or early November. And I think I got a call from my representation warning me, like, hey, like, by the way, like, the detective is like, you know, located him. He's going to be getting served today, like just, or this week or something. Like, I kind of had a heads up that it was happening. And I get an email from him. So when you get served papers, in this situation, or maybe all situations, like they make it clear on the paperwork that you are not to contact the person suing you, like from this moment of being served and moving forward.
Not in person, not
nothing.
Not over the phone, nothing.
And I get an email from him saying, and I remember my representation told me, like, if you hear anything from him moving forward, you forward everything to me. We need to file all of this. Don't respond, send it to me. And I got an email from him the day he got served. You're fucking suing me, you blah, 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 whatever. And I didn't respond, forwarded it or called them, left them a voicemail, forwarded it over. And she calls me back like within the hour. And she's like, oh, well, he has just violated the protective order because it clearly states that you are not to contact. So now he can be arrested for this because he has violated this. So now I'm being told that my ex is about to get arrested. To my knowledge, he didn't get arrested. But that was kind of what was supposed to happen. And I actually got several calls, actually even leading into the next year. So fast forward into 2021. I remember I was in Miami for Memorial Weekend. Remember I went to Miami? I got a call when I was in Miami from one of the other detectives. They were trying to locate him because they were trying to arrest him for the violation of the protective order. This just kept, because every time they'd show up, he wasn't there. He was renting the house out. It was a whole thing. He was probably traveling. God, I don't care. Who knows what. And then even in Greece, I actually got a call in Greece about something else. It's just still like lingering. But so didn't hear from him after that. So then go into, what would this be? January 2021. Our court date's set. He hires some attorney, private attorney, like family big shot attorney out of, I think she was out of Houston or something. I can't remember. And my representation tells me that I have a plethora of like evidence. Like there's no reason this shouldn't, like, because all I was asking for was just like protection of like, you can't contact me. I'm not trying to like, you know, and for protective orders, to my understanding, like that's not even supposed to go like on like a record that like an employer would find out about. So, yeah, January 2021, we have a court date is set, and we have virtual court because it's still like the pandemic, and it was like a whole day thing. And I can't remember how much, I don't even know what I should share about that, but I just remember going into it like thinking like there's no way this won't get approved. And then as soon as we got on the call, it was a female judge, and I'm thinking to myself, okay, this is gonna be fine, because a woman to a woman like should maybe have a little bit extra like understanding. And it didn't get approved. So we had court all day.
So the protection order did not get filed.
Yeah. Protective order did not get filed.
But then
No, he never contacted me. It didn't get pushed through and approved. He hired a really good attorney. I remember like crying for a long time that night, just feeling like it was a waste of time and energy and like all that shit, and just feeling like, what the fuck? But I never heard from him. My representation did tell me though that like it was, you know, she reassured me that like it's good we went through this process, because if he does contact you again, we have this trail now, and so this will reopen the case. So she told me, if you ever hear from him again, you immediately contact me, we reopen this, and then we're going to court again. Yeah, I mean, the only time I ran into him or I saw him from afar, summer 2021, I was paddleboarding, which I did regularly on Saturdays or Sundays with my girlfriend Aubrey, and I was paddleboarding, and I remember like hearing his voice. And you know when you've been with someone, you recognize their voice. And I remember hearing his voice, and I look over and I had my sunglasses and my hat on, and I'm like obviously in my swimsuit paddling, and I look over and I see him with his girlfriend, and I assume it's her friends. I didn't recognize anyone else, and I just keep paddling. Actually, funny enough, before I saw him on the water, did I tell you about this? How I pulled in, Aubrey and I had the paddle boards in her car. We're going to paddleboard. This is like a summer day, 2021. We're pulling into the parking lot, and it's a busy day, so like everyone's coming in trying to park and find a spot. And I look in the rearview mirror, and she's driving, and I see, because he had a very like distinct, unique colored car, and I see in the rearview mirror, and I like had my sunglasses on, and I'm like, are you fucking kidding me? And it was him and his girlfriend in the car behind us. Of all the places to put in on the water, there's so many places to park and parking lots. And I'm like, Aubrey, it's him.
awesome.
oh my God. And I'm starting to like, oh my God, I'm hyperventilating. I'm like, cause I'm at this point, like if I see him, I don't know what I would do. Yeah. We do a loop around. We park in the parking lot. He follows and does a loop around. He doesn't see us and he's clearly trying to look for a spot. And then I see him drive by and I see him and I know it's him. And then I saw him in the water when I pulled away or when we got done with our paddle session, but we never actually had a conversation since court. Well, let me kind of segue to moving.
What you've done that you moved out of Austin.
Yeah. So I ended up losing my job, which we'll save that for a whole other episode. But lost my job actually the month after court. So things were just really not fucking good. I just had court with my ex who was stalking me and harassing me and all these things and didn't win in court. And literally like 3 weeks later, I find out I lost my job, had no income, filed for unemployment. It was just a fucking shitty time. And so I moved to another place and had someone that was splitting their rent with me to like kind of lower my costs a little bit. And then fast forward to October 2021.
Well, but at some point you just decided you needed to get out of Austin.
I only planned to come home to Oregon for 3 months. That was my initial plan. Right. Yeah. So I actually remember like hanging out with friends and like in this new remote world that we're in, I was hearing about a lot of friends that were like traveling to like visit family or go to places for like just short stints, like 1 month, 2 month. And so I was like, you know what? I haven't seen my family for the holidays in a couple years because of the pandemic. Like I can work remotely. I just need to get the fuck out of Austin. I was kind of needed a change. I had full intentions initially of coming back to Austin. So I put all my stuff in storage in Austin in a storage unit and rented a car because I didn't own a car and drove cross country from Austin, Texas to Portland, Oregon over the course of 4 days with my dog and all of my clothes. With intention, had a short-term rental, an Airbnb that I rented for 3 months and had intention just to stay through the holidays and then go back to Austin. And then within 3-4 weeks of being back in Oregon, which is where I'm from, everyone, I knew I couldn't go back. I like had so much relief. I don't even think I realized, I didn't realize how much relief I would have.
Or the stress you were under.
Oh my God. Dad, I couldn't go anywhere. I couldn't even go to the fucking grocery store. Anywhere I'd go, bars, restaurants, brunch, hiking, paddleboarding. Everywhere I'd go, as soon as I walk in, I would do a head swivel and like spot check the entire place to see if I saw him. It was just this constant, like it became my norm to the point where I didn't realize how unhealthy that was for my mental state. And then coming to Portland, and Oregon is mine. Oregon has always been fucking mine. And none of my exes have ties here. I'm an Oregon girl through and through. And now being in Portland, he had no ties here. There was no reason for him to be here. And I just remember like walking around and walking Riley. The sun's gone. The sun's down. It's 9:00 at night. I'm not fucking worried about anything. No stress. Yeah. And then we'll segue next episodes into my new chapter in Portland. Since moving to Portland has really cultivated the podcast. So yeah, we'll kind of run through the next adventure of Third Time's Me. This wraps up. Yep. This is now we've gone through all the serious relationships, wrapped up with fiance number 2, and now we're on to the next adventure. And it only took 2 hours and 36 minutes. I actually thought it would take a good amount of time, so that's pretty good. 2 to 3 hours. Boom. Stay tuned. Now things get good, like fun good, like positive good, uplifting, inspiring, all the good stuff.